Hello, everybody, and good afternoon. Welcome to Dad's Den of Pop Culture. This is Alpha Flight Monday, and we are looking today at Alpha Flight number 36 from July of 1986. And this is sort of an important issue to me, for reasons beyond what's actually in the story. This is the first Alpha Flight issue I ever bought. Off the rack from 7-Eleven. It's really only the second superhero comic I ever bought. The first being Hulk number 321. Interesting that I bought a Hulk comic and I bought an Alpha Flight comic when the creative teams of those two had switched places. And of course, I didn't know that at the time. So this was my introduction to Alpha Flight. It was really my introduction to a lot of things because I was just reading through real quick before I did this video. And I'm thinking, wow, I mean, here's these characters that I know so well now, but I didn't know who these people were. And there's a lot of characters in this issue. So let's jump into it. We got a Mignola Milgram cover. Box. This cover, I think, is what obviously attracted me immediately to the comic. Box looking very impressive. Shaman in his new costume. Puck, one of my early favorites. And in this issue, the Avengers and Doctor Strange. 75 cents. Those were the days. Bill Mantlo, writer. David Ross, penciler. Jerry Taliak, inker. Joe Rosen, letterer. Bob Sharon, colorist. Carl Potts, editor. Jim Shooter, editor-in-chief. Labor Pains. Moonlight on Snow. A Hunter's Moon. And so we have this little white bunny rabbit, and we have this snow owl. And the owl takes the rabbit and then transforms into Snowbird, who eats the rabbit raw, and then is struck down with pain. The pain again, doubling me over, causing the hare's sweet blood to turn to bile on my tongue. What kind of goddess am I that I crave food but cannot eat? And if you've been following along for many issues, you'll know this is similar. This is something similar to what she did when she was first born. And we're going to get that story in here, but so I won't go into it right now. So we have her husband, Doug Thompson, of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, meeting with Alpha Flight, and he is not happy. Because Shaman, when Snowbird awoke, and she's been going through these pains, he allowed her to fly forth, going right through a window, apparently, because she needed to feed. And what kind of a doctor are you? I am both a physician and a Sarsi mystic, Corporal Thompson. As such, I understood that Snowbird needed sustenance for both physical and spiritual reasons. Michael, Shaman, were Alphans, heroes, used to unorthodoxy. Doug isn't. He is a mere mortal, married to a goddess. He made his bed, let him lie in it. An apt metaphor, eh, Aurora? So, North Star, already being a jerk. Blast it, Michael. Doug needs some reassurance that Arya's okay. But there is nothing wrong with her. Come on, what about her pain, the abdominal cramping, her inability to control her transformations from one Arctic creature to the next, her nocturnal cravings? Without medical precedent, I can only presume that those symptoms are all fairly normal for a goddess who is going to have a baby. Dun, dun, dun. And at that point, she arrives, and they're amazed. She looks 8 months pregnant. She showed no sign of carrying a child yesterday. And now, again, this is very similar to her own birth, and we'll get to that in a moment. But we switch to New York City's East River, and here we have Bira, an Atlantean. When my people once again rule the earth, the surface dwellers polluting our waters, the surface dwellers will suffer for polluting our waters in so foul a fashion. This is something that drives me nuts in these comics, and I get it. We're tut-tutting at pollution and all that stuff. although these people seem to think that you get to have all the comforts they enjoyed of life in the 1980s without something like that. But what always bugs me is, okay, Atlantean, you get to have some high-tech society with some magical non-polluting power source. Why don't you share it with humanity? Do you think humanity wants to pollute things? Like, that's our goal? Give us the technology, for crying out loud. Then we won't pollute your waters anymore. Dumbass. Anyways, and he is kind of a dumbass, which we're going to see. Atlantis was all aflurry with the news that Namor had joined the Avengers. The cursed half-breed. His allegiance was ever to his father's race. True, the Atlantean Council of Elders did ask him to abdicate the throne. See Avengers number 262 and Submariner miniseries. But no one drove Namor away. He chose to leave his people for them. So Namor's cousin, not a big fan of surface dwellers, not a big fan of Namor the Submariner. And imagine oh my goodness, what would I have been, 12-year-old me going, who the hell are all these people? I managed to pick an issue that throws a lot of different continuing storylines in all at once. So he has reached the submarine pins underneath Avengers Mansion. He blasts his way in and sees that it looks like maybe it's been abandoned at some point. And he makes his way up onto this platform. It is a mystery. Could they have abandoned this facility? That's for us to know, Blueskin, and for you to find out. I am discovered. From the moment you slagged our secret sub-pin door, friend, didn't it occur to you that you'd set off an alarm? So now I'm being confronted with the Black Knight. Dude, I was an avid Dungeons & Dragons player at the time, so that was probably something I really enjoyed seeing. We get a brief sword fight between Bira and the Black Knight. The Black Knight breaks his blade, knocks him down, and at that point, Namor arrives. And this is old school great Marvel art right here. This is how it's done. You are the Black Knight. Even in Atlantis is your swordsmanship acclaimed, but Bira has a considerable reputation of his own. Aye, cousin, you are known the length and breadth of the seven seas as a traitor, usurper, and assassin. My lord, my prince, my cousin, ugh, as he throws him across the room. Let's zoom in a little bit here. It's a great panel. Oops, there we go. Very nicely done. Well done, David Ross. And I didn't really talk about that last issue, but David Ross is now penciling the book, and he's doing a very fine job, in my opinion. We get now a whole lot of text, where basically Namor is talking about this scumbag Bira has tried to usurp him in the past, etc., etc., etc. And he says, yes, my prince, you wronged me. All that you have said is true. But if I hated you, it was because you were not of pure Atlantean stock. Thus I deemed you unworthy of the throne. Yet now another rules the realm with none of our ancestral blood at all. The barbarian Atuma has seized power, and only the savage Submariner can save Atlantis. If this be another trick of yours, Bira, I offer my sword in your service, cousin. Slay me with its broken blade if, after hearing my tale, you still think I lie. My mind reels. What happened to the triumvirate? So basically what we're going to end up with is an explanation of what happened. Because the Submariner loved Marina, and because of other things that he did, he was forced to abdicate the throne of Atlantis. He left. He joined the Avengers. Now, if you've ever read, well, in fact, I did an Avengers review a week or two ago, going over the first year of the Avengers, and he was one of the early enemies of the Avengers, teaming up with the Hulk to fight them. So him joining the Avengers was kind of a big deal. And but he explains, yes, that there was a civil war after you left between the triumvirate, and Atuma basically used the opportunity to seize power. And the way that he did it was through Marina. Atuma went to great lengths to convince the Atlantean people that you had forsaken them. So well does your prince love you that he has thrown in his lot with the surface dwellers. Over time it was forgotten that 'twas the Atlanteans themselves that had sought your abdication. In the end it was easy to convince the Atlanteans that their prince had loved them not, for Atuma produced a hideous alien female, whom he claimed you intended to wed, and thus crowned monster queen of Atlantis. This alien, did Atuma name her Bira? I love this shot right down here. What the heck, we'll zoom in on that a little bit, because you can see Namor is seething, and I love the way Hercules has his hand on his shoulder like, be cool, bro, be cool. Not that Hercules is necessarily all that cool himself when it comes down to it. Aye, cousin, he did call her Marina. Of course, few believed that you could actually love such a creature. Well, Bear's about to get thrown across the room again. Say no more, cousin. If you value your life, I would have made Marina my bride and my queen, had she not fled from me soon after a madman calling himself the master of the world forced her to assume her hereditary form. I searched for her to no avail, and now I'll summon the other Avengers, Namor. Thy love will be rescued, Prince of the Sea. I love that you got these two sort of, sort of, I don't know, chivalrous characters here. Namor, Hercules, and the Black Knight. Great pair, or great trio to deal with this. But of course, Namor, ever arrogant. No, Atuma has set a trap for me, Hercules, baiting it with my beloved. If I come to her aid, he will either turn those who believe Marina to be a monster against me, or slay me. If I do not, he will pronounce me a coward from my own throne. But I will beard the barbarian in his own lair, and win back my beloved and my kingdom, alone. Forget your pride, Namor. It cost you Atlantis once. You cannot oust Atuma without aid. You are an Avenger. You need these heroes' help. I am Namor, the First, Prince of Atlantis, Scourge of the Seven Seas. Mark my words, cousin. There will come a day, and soon, when you will rue those words and the accursed arrogance that made you utter them. The day that occurs, Bira, shall be Namor's last. And so, essentially, Namor now leaves the Avengers to go save Atlantis. But we're going to find in the coming issues, it's going to be struck on in Alpha Flight a bit, but we're also going to see Alpha Flight appear in an issue of the Avengers, which you can see I just bought for $3. So they're going to guest star as they go toe-to-toe trying to win back Atlantis. We'll get to that later. Not this, not during this episode of Alpha Flight Monday, but later. We now switch over to Tamarind Island. It's snowing, or has snowed, and Puck is talking to Thompson. He tells the story of how Narya Snowbird came to be born. A mortal archaeologist who had found this headband. He mates with a goddess, and she brings forth this baby, sort of unshaped, to Shaman, and Shaman binds the child to the mortal world. This is all from Alpha Flight number 7 through 8, so go back through the Alpha Flight playlist and you can find when I went over those. So she then joins Alpha Flight. That's Mac and Heather. Heather has known Shaman for a long time, when he was just a normal old physician and not a magical superhero. And so Doug Thompson, frankly, kind of a weenie. I get it. He's sort of, what is going on? He's in over his head. But so we have Puck say, through Snowbird, Nelvana tried to bind the gods to the earth from which they'd been driven by the great beasts. And Thompson replies, and by marrying Corporal Doug Thompson of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. I like that they always use that all the way through. Snowbird tried to bind herself to mortality. But did she mean to bind herself to me? She loves you, eh? Does she? Or would any mere mortal have been able to give her what she wants? A baby, a second-generation immortal, who'd bind Narya to the earth so fast that the gods would never be able to get her back. You think the gods want her? After defeating the great beast, she said her work on earth was done. But she stayed. She stayed, and she told me it was because she sought to know what being human, being normal was like. She asked me to teach her to be a woman. I tried, but then she came back to Alpha Flight, to her fellow freaks, where nothing is normal or ever will be. And now this pregnancy. I don't want your sympathy, midget, or the flight's help, or the blasted baby. All I want is my wife back. I kind of joke every issue that North Star is a jerk. He's one of the great jerks of Marvel. Corporal Doug Thompson of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police just out-jerked him 100%. He's kind of an a-hole. It's like, do you love your wife, or do you want to possess your wife? I don't think you love her, because if you did, you'd be a little bit more concerned with her and not with you. So, she sort of returned back to normal here. Shaman is saying, I don't really have the equipment I need. We get a little demonstration of the power of Roger Box and Mr. Jeffries, who is capable of sort of, as Roger Box thinks about a sonogram, which is what they need, Mr. Jeffries is able to transmute metal and equipment they have there into the sonogram. And Shaman shows them, here's the baby, but it's unformed. As when I delivered you, Narya, and like you, it will have to be bound to this reality, to humanity, but not here. And so he explains, we need to find a place of power. And so he goes into the other room, and Heather's saying, well, why can't it be here? Maybe this is a place of power. And so Shaman brings forth the spirits of the land to ask them. And this is partly showing off Shaman's different magical abilities from what he had earlier in the run, where he would conjure things out of this medicine bag. Now he has this staff. He has this helm, which, contains the soul of his familiar, Eaglet. And so he brings forth these spirits, and they make sure you understand, he does not command them. He can request things from them. And so, as he says, yours is the power to conjure us forth, Shaman, and to implore our aid. You may not command us, though. Only your daughter, the binder of spirits, the talisman, may do that. And so he asked them, can I do this here? And they say, no. This place must be purified. It is a place of death. At which Heather's going, okay, what? They knew that Gilded Lily died here. Did somebody else die here? Or will someone die here soon? And Shaman even says, are you answering me truthfully? And the one spirit says, that, O wise and powerful Shaman, would be telling. And they kind of disappear giggling. So they're screwing with him a little bit, letting him know where he stands. He does not have the kind of power that he used to have. Okay, that's interesting. So Heather says, I don't understand, Shaman. The spirits laughed at you. Couldn't you make them tell you what you want to know? And he says again, no, that would take the power of my daughter. So he has to, in order to command the spirits as she does, he would have to surrender his humanity, as she did. It says she still blames me for turning her into the talisman, as well as for her mother's death. Failed her trust. So he failed her trust in both instances. And Heather says, I've seen how cold and unfeeling Elizabeth's become, Michael. I like you human. So too do I. So he could maybe become more powerful. He doesn't want to. There's a bigger price. Maybe that's foreshadowing something that will happen later. So he implores the gods, tell me where I can do this, deliver this grandchild. And they basically say no. She turned her back on us, so we now turn aside rather than aid her folly. And Heather's amazed. Oh my, those were the gods? Wow. And they will not help. So he must ask another, whom do you consult about something like this? Why, a fellow physician, of course. Which, if you were a longtime Marvel reader, you know who he's talking about. I had no idea who Doctor Strange even was. So this is my introduction to Doctor Strange. And so he brings forth Doctor Strange, who's in his astral form, who guides them, along with help from the wind, to get them there to this place of power, far to the north. And look at this lineup here. The Avengers, King versus Immortus, Power Pack, Uncanny X-Men with a great Wolverine cover, and G.I. Joe. Good times. So they find this place of power, and Shaman says, of course, this is very near the place of self-awareness where I delivered Snowbird herself. I should have thought to seek here first. Yes, there is power here, but also something unsettling, some elusive sense of evil. It is because it is an icy wasteland, you say so. Canada is home to many such places. But I know it is where Snowbird's child must be born. And so they return to the mansion. This is your land, and I yield to your knowledge of it. Let the wind thus carry you home, and I will take my leave to attend my own pressing matters. I hope, Alphons, that I have been of some use. You have, friend. Many thanks. So, what a wild trip. And at that point, North Star bursts in and says, we got a problem down at the wharf. And we're not talking about a Klingon. Yeah, that show wouldn't be around for another year or two? Not too much further along, though. So Doug Thompson has taken Snowbird. He's holding a gun on everybody. He's going to take his wife to a hospital. They're going, dude, they're not going to be able to do this. You're lying. Yada, yada, yada. And they're saying, you've got to think about your wife. Narya wants to be normal. I want her and the baby to live. The safety of mother and child can only be assured, mon ami. And then this is Aurora. If you let Shaman help. And I love that image of her grabbing the gun. What the blood? No one can move that fast. You should see my brother run someday. Or try to see him. Nice introduction to the powers. Because you don't get to see most of the characters using their powers in this particular issue. And so they convince him, let me help. Let me do this. You'd better know what you're doing, Mystic. Well, as they take off towards the ice-locked shoreline of far distant Beachy Island, from within a foreboding circle of stones, power does indeed emanate. But the power sensed by Doctor Strange and Shaman is also capable of disguising its true nature, so that which was perceived as good might actually be wholly and irredeemably evil. Too long have I lain in the icy embrace of the earth. Soon, soon shall death release me, and pestilence live again. Next issue, Death Birth. Whoa, okay. So an interesting issue, and kind of a crazy issue to be one of my first, because it's not a bad guy shows up, big slug fist, big fight. It's very much wrapped into several different storylines and the history of Alpha Flight. And maybe that was good, because maybe that got me interested in getting some back issues and finding out more about these characters and who they were. So much in here was so enticing. And a little introduction for me to the Avengers, to Doctor Strange. Obviously, it was an issue that was good enough to get me to go back for more. I became an avid Alpha Flight fan after this. It was so intriguing. And everything when it was so new and so different for me. I was not a superhero comic nerd. I knew superheroes from cartoons and things like that, not really from comic books. I got my first introduction in the Marvel Superheroes game, and it intrigued me, which is why I picked up Hulk number 321, which itself had like Hulk fighting the Avengers and the West Coast Avengers. And I looked at it and said, wow, that's a lot of characters. Maybe I should get this book and learn a little bit about what's going on. Here I was again, another issue with lots of different characters. That was the beauty of the Marvel Universe, bringing everything together, overlapping, intertwining, and really sucking you in, which it did. I remember mostly I got Marvel comics at this point in time. I think I was maybe getting Batman, maybe. But I would soon get into DC as well. But Marvel really sucked me in. So, an interesting story. We're advancing the Atlantean storyline. We're going to see more of that later. We're advancing Snowbird's storyline. We're getting to see Shaman in his new costume with his new powers. Introduction to some of the other characters for folks who had just picked up this issue for the first time. And maybe some hints of other things to come. What do you folks think of Alpha Flight number 36, Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. If you enjoyed this video, please think about subscribing and maybe sharing with a friend. Helps my little channel grow, and I do truly appreciate it. But until next time, God bless everybody. Please be kind to one another. Have a little bit of fun, and I'll see you next time in Dad's Den of Pop Culture. Bye-bye.